I was a doubter, a naysayer, a non-believer, but after playing this demo, I am a changed woman. The 2-hour Final Fantasy XVI demo dropped June 12th, yesterday, and I hesitantly gave it a go, and boy am I glad I did. We are hit with an explosive opening, 2 icons, Ifrit and Phoenix, locked into a battle to the death, and this is how we're introduced to our main boy, Clive, reflecting on the fierce fight. He's with a small band of soldiers, waiting for the right time to steal another kingdom's dominant, aka someone who can use an icon, in this case, Shiva. Meanwhile, the plan gets a little messy and Clive is brought back to his earlier years, training to be a proper shield to his younger brother and dominant of the Phoenix, Joshua. Essentially, we get to see the events that led to Clive to his present-day predicament. We get to meet his family, explore their relationships, understand his status in the world, and the world itself. There's even a mechanic, ATL, Active Time Lore, to get more info on the world. For a 2-hour act, you get an immediate understanding of the character bonds while not feeling rushed. I love that walking through the town, you don't have to hit a button to talk to everyone. Rather, you overhear conversations, and it feels very natural. That isn't to say sometimes you must make an effort to interact. Another big standout point is the narrative direction. My biggest takeaway is its very Game of Thrones feeling, from dialogue, the Western look, the European medieval setting, and the political games. Another reason I bring up Game of Thrones is because the developers had to watch Game of Thrones, because this was the feel they wanted to achieve. And why not? Game of Thrones was wildly successful until the final season, and I can say with absolute confidence, they got the vibe down, from the dialogue to the steamy scenes and the violence. Yoshi P is the producer of Final Fantasy XVI, and in an interview with Eurogamer said that as he's grown older, he finds himself liking fantasy that is based more in reality, and goes on to say how Game of Thrones and the books resonated with people. And he's not wrong. Funny enough, it was the Western visuals and the realism that kinda turned me off. I'm a JRPG lover, and I tend to lean into those anime-style looks, you know? Playing this demo made me look beyond Final Fantasy XVI's art direction, and made me experience sweet and smooth combat. Final Fantasy hasn't been turn-based in years, and has been moving more and more into action combat. Final Fantasy XVI continues that trend with fast and fluid combat. The flow is amazing, from regular battles to icon duels. I love me a game with perfect dodging that rewards the player with slow motion and getting in there to attack, or parrying, striking at the exact time the enemy does. Items are accessible in the quick menu with the D-pad. This game does everything in its power to keep you in the action and the menus to a minimum. You can weave powerful combos with magic and physical attacks, wearing your enemy's will gauge. There are partial stuns, giving you an opportunity to get a few hits, but when their will gauge is shattered, they become staggered, and that's your chance to go all in, racking up combos and dealing heavier damage. Of course, there are special attacks that deal chunks of damage. Those have a cooldown. Quicktime events are present with cinematic attacks and dodges, to give that extra Final Fantasy over-the-top flair. If you find yourself struggling, there are timely accessories, items that help the player chaining complex combos or slowing down time when an attack is incoming, giving the player an extended evasion window. You'll want to do well in battle, as your rewards are based on your performance, better gear, more experience, and ability points. Devs of Final Fantasy XVI also revealed the game will have multiple characters, and you'll have the pleasure of controlling more than just Clive. And I love when a game can make characters feel so vastly different, and Final Fantasy XVI does just that. How they feel and their roles, their playstyle is varied. No matter what character you play, hits feel solid. When the controller vibrates, accentuating your power, it's just a great feeling. After you complete Act 1, you're able to sample another fight that better represents the full scope of the gameplay. Clive now wields 3 icons and switches between them, changing his weapons and skill set. Of course, we can't forget about the icon battles, which we get a little sample of. While it's a dense and epic fight, it's pretty simplistic, And I don't think that's a bad thing, and we only got a taste, to be fair. It's a point and shoot, dodge, and the occasional cinematic cutscene. And this is also where some of Final Fantasy XVI's cracks start to show, the frame rate, because the battles are so grand and there's a lot going on. But you know what? I can forgive that because of the incredible music that accompanies these savage fights. I'm also enjoying the simple exploration, ducking under things, climbing, and even the small interactive bits of opening doors. I like that it's a small nudge that wakes the player up. The environments are heavily packed, fun to explore with full camera control. I would suggest toning down the motion blur, or at least giving players some sort of option to do so. While I'm happy with the minimal exploration, and honestly, I'm thrilled that there isn't an open world. This just might be me coming from Tears of the Kingdom, but I'm very pleased to have a more contained world to explore. This was due to time constraints, wanting to tighten up other elements than trying to fit an open world. And you know what? That's a sign of a great producer, knowing what to focus on. So if you're like me and you're on the fence about Final Fantasy XVI, play the demo. It's extraordinary and changed my mind. Trust me, I was that curmudgeon. And perhaps still am, but just to a lesser extent. I'll leave you with this. To me, it still doesn't feel like a classic Final Fantasy. If you took out all the Final Fantasy staples, Shiva, Chocobos, Malboro, I would not be able to tell this was a Final Fantasy title. It was like picking up a glass thinking it was full of orange juice. Then you drink it and it's apple juice. But you like apple juice, it's just not orange juice. Still great, just not what you expected. It felt like Game of Thrones collabed with Final Fantasy. That said, I am 100% sold that Final Fantasy XVI will be an extraordinary journey from start to finish. I really hope those who are skeptical give Final Fantasy XVI a fair shake. Thank you so much for watching. Check out my review of some of my favorite Final Fantasies, 4 and 9. These games are what Final Fantasy means to me, and I'm hoping to get some of their magic sprinkled into Final Fantasy XVI. Thank you again for watching, and I love your faces, and I'll see you in the next video. Mwah!